How you doing, everyone? Welcome back. Well, I'm still not quite back at the point of creating as much content as I would like to and getting videos uploaded as often as I would like, but yeah, I'm getting there. I mean, I'll get it back to being a daily thing, hopefully soon. Uh, anyway, what are we talking about today? Well, same thing we always talk about. Whatever is in my head, right? That's why it's the name of the channel. Today, we are going to talk about tipping. Yeah, tipping. I'm not talking about, when the referee throws the ball up to the basketball players and they have to tip it to their teammate to get possession of the ball, or a hockey player in front of the net and somebody else takes a shot and he tips it in. No, not that kind of tipping. We're talking about people who work for tips. Whether that's, you serve at a restaurant or taxi driver or pizza delivery, the woman who does your nails at the salon, your barber or whoever else may cut or style your hair, tipping. The valet, if you go somewhere where they offer valet parking and you take advantage of it, tip the valet. Why is that? Well, first of all, it's just rude not to tip. Second of all, a lot of those people rely on tips for their income. Now, granted, that service needs to needs to be good service. I agree with anybody who would make that argument that, hey, you know what? If they're not going to provide good service, they're not going to get a good tip. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I will agree with that. However, I don't think that should mean no tip. And here's why. First of all, that is their source of income, right? You could go to your job, assuming that you're watching this and you don't work for tips. You could go to your job and you could have a bad day and just not do very well at your job that day. And what's going to happen? You're going to work your shift and you're going to make the same amount of money that you otherwise would. Whereas tipped employees, they don't make they're not guaranteed how much they're going to make, right? Now, we can make the argument that their employers should pay them enough so that they don't have to rely on tips, and that's a discussion worth having. That's a discussion worth having. In fact, in other countries, that's the way it is. They don't rely on tips because they are paid well enough that they don't have to. Now, in this country, people rely on tips. That's just the custom, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. That's just kind of, an American habit, right? It's just part of our culture. We tip. Now, I know, they say, 15 to 20% for a server in a restaurant. And I don't go below 15%. I just don't. If I can't afford a 20 to 25% tip, then I can't afford to eat in that establishment. It's that simple. And the reason I say 20 to 25% is because, I mean, we're at a point now where 18 to 20 is more customary. It used to be 15. Now it's 18 to 20. And personally, I like tipping 20% or more. Or more, right? Now, keep in mind, I also don't go to extravagant, expensive restaurants, right? I think the most extravagant place that I've been, and I would hardly call this extravagant, in the past couple of years, has been probably a Red Lobster. Hardly extravagant, you know. I mean, it's beyond the budget of some people. I get that, but it's a very average place, right? Normally, I would go to places, I mean, local places, more likely, but as far as places that you would know, you know, I might go to a Carlos O'Kelly's or an Applebee's, you know, a place like that. I mean, I prefer local joints, though. Just personal preference. The food is better generally. And I just like to keep the money local, you know? But yeah, let's just say we go out and I'm just throwing a number out here, $50, right? We spend $50. All right. So $10 would be 20% if the math in my head is right, you know, right off the top of my head. So if I can't afford a $10 tip on a $50 bill, I'm not going there. Not going there. Generally, I tip more, especially if if the service is extravagant. I mean, I don't know if extravagant is the right word, but if I am provided excellent service, the tip will reflect that. The tip will reflect that as well. I would encourage you to do the same. Don't just do the standard, 20% or whatever, right? If it's excellent service, tip accordingly, right? Again, using the $50 just kind of as just a random number for the sake of making the math easier, right? Yeah, it's not unheard of for me to leave a $20 tip. If the service warrants it. It is not uncommon. Something else that I like to do when I go to either a restaurant, or actually I've done this at one of the, you're familiar with Lowe's, Home Depot, one of those types of stores, right? I was in one of those types of stores a while back, and this is before I had my truck. I needed some plywood cut. I have the tools to do it, but I didn't have the truck to haul the plywood, so I needed it cut. And actually, it wasn't plywood. It wasn't, actually. It was like a laminated, like a tabletop veneer type. It looked like a wood grain panel or whatnot. and there was just the little corner of it was kind of banged up a little bit. And now keep in mind, for my project, that little banged up corner wouldn't have mattered. But the kid who was working there made sure that that was cut off. You know, that was the part that got cut off. Wouldn't have mattered for my project, but it might have for someone else's. He didn't know that it didn't matter for my project. Little details like that. Now, that's got nothing to do with tipping, of course, but something that I will do in a restaurant, or like in that situation, I'm going to talk to the manager, right? I'm going to talk to the manager. Why? Because usually when somebody wants to talk to the manager, it seems like they're always complaining about something, right? Well, I want to talk to your manager. Okay, sure. And they go through the list of everything you've done wrong. Even some things you may not have done wrong. But what I like to do is talk to the manager and say, hey, look. For example, the guy in the store that cut that paneling for me. Hey, look. He measured it just precisely, and he cut it. He even made sure that this was the offcut piece. He made sure that this was the offcut piece, even though it didn't matter to my project. He didn't know that, so he made sure that he did it that way. You know, he actually did. I watched him pay attention to it, and he's like, okay, I'm going to turn this way so that we can cut that part off. Or in a restaurant, hey, could I talk to your manager? Manager comes over to the table. Hey, you know what? Your server right here did an outstanding job. You know, took care of me, and I was watching your server as, in fact, this actually happened. I was at a restaurant in Iowa City one time, and this young man, as a server, he was taking care of our table. He was also taking care of another table, and that next table over, there was an elderly gentleman with mobility issues, and he couldn't hear very well. And this young man, he was so patient with that elderly man and made sure that he understood. He understood what the elderly man was saying, and that the elderly man understood him. I mean, helped him in and out of his seat. And you know what? Forget about the service that I received that day, which, by the way, was fantastic. But that was why I called the manager over in that incident. It's in that instance. Hey, you know what? I want to tell you about your server right here. This guy, I mean, first of all, our service was great, but I saw what he did over there. And I want you to know that. And I want the rest of your employees to emulate that guy, because that's how service is supposed to be, right? The last time I did it, I was at a restaurant in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Mexican restaurant, I don't remember the name of the place. And the woman who served us, just absolutely fantastic. I mean, she was prompt, she was polite, she was funny. Hey, could I see your manager, please? Hey, you know what? Your server took care of us well. And I want you to know that. You know, and I went through the list of, hey, look, this is what she did right. So, yeah, take care of your servers. Take care of your, let the managers know when employees do right. Don't forget to tip your servers and others who rely on those tips. And I will see you next time.